Keanu Reeves walked into the fancy building quietly. He didn't wear a name badge. He didn't wear a shiny tuxedo like everyone else. He didn't have people following him or cameras flashing. He just walked in softly with calm and quiet grace. Celeste Marlowe saw him. She didn't like what she saw. She thought he didn't belong. She decided she was going to embarrass him. She asked security to walk him out. People in the crowd laughed and whispered mean things. But later that night, something surprising happened. Cliff Richard went on stage. He said just one name, and that name changed everything. All of Marlowe's plans, her power, and her pride started to fall apart. The Royal Albert Hall sparkled like a dream. Golden chandeliers hung from the tall ceilings. Light danced across the glass windows like sunshine on water. The hall was full of famous people, celebrities, rich helpers, and kind donors. They were dressed like kings and queens. Men wore black tuxedos. Women wore silky dresses, long gloves, and held little bags that sparkled like stars. This was the Royal Music Gala for healing. It was a night to raise a lot of money for good causes. A night where people tried to help others, but also wanted to look very fancy doing it. Then a quiet man walked in. Keanu Reeves. He didn't have an assistant. He didn't have flashing cameras. He didn't even try to get attention. He wore a plain black shirt, neatly tucked into his pants. His shoes were leather but a little worn out. And even though the room was full of people who wanted to be noticed, Keanu had a calmness that made him almost invisible. At the front desk, a woman in a red jacket stood with a tablet. Her name tag read, Emily, Gala Liaison. She smiled without really smiling and said, "Name, sir?" "Keanu Reeves," he replied kindly. Emily blinked and looked down at her tablet. Tap, scroll, tap, scroll. Then she frowned. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reeves. I don't see your name here." Keanu gave a small, gentle smile. "I was invited privately. I believe the team was told to expect me." Emily looked unsure. "Do you have a QR code or an email with your confirmation?" "No," he said calmly. He pulled a small piece of paper from his pocket. It was folded and written by hand. The ink was a little smudged from his fingers. At the bottom was only one letter, C. Emily read it, then frowned again. She looked at him like she wasn't sure if he should be there. "I'll need to call my supervisor," she said. But before she could, someone else walked up. A tall, fancy woman in a silver-gray gown. Her hair was perfectly tied in a bun. She moved like a queen. Her name was Celeste Marlowe. She helped create this whole event. She looked at Keanu from his shirt to his shoes. She didn't like what she saw. "Is there a problem?" she asked in a smooth but strict voice. "He says he's invited," Emily explained, "but he doesn't have the right credentials." Marlowe gave a sharp little smile. "Well, how sweet," she said. "But sir, this event is for invited guests only. We can't just accept handwritten notes." Keanu looked at her kindly. "I was told to arrive quietly." Her voice stayed calm, but her smile got colder. "I'm sure you were. But there's a press entrance around back, near the loading dock. If you'd like to watch from there." A few guests near the door laughed softly. Keanu nodded, still gentle. "Thank you." He stepped away. Not angry. Not sad. Just quiet and calm. Emily looked a little uncomfortable. But Marlowe had already turned away. She called a security guard and said, "Please guide him out. We can't have people making up their own way in." So the man who had given more than anyone else in that room, the man who didn't want attention, only to help, was shown to the side of the room. But he didn't leave. Not yet. He stayed, waiting. For the music. and for the truth. Inside the hall, soft music floated through the air like bubbles. People sat at shining tables shaped like jewels. Everything looked perfect. Everything felt important. Celeste Marlowe walked around like a conductor leading a big band. Her seat was near the stage. She sat beside old money families and people who wanted to be rich and known. Her silver dress shimmered. Her diamonds weren't huge, but they looked like they came from a castle. She had worked hard to make this night perfect. She made the rules, and she expected them to be followed. So when she looked across the hall and saw the man in black, Keanu, sitting in row 5, she wasn't happy. He looked calm, not fancy. No tuxedo. No name badge. Just a quiet man sitting, watching. She leaned toward the event host, Tessa Vane. "Darling," Marlowe whispered, "who put that man in black in the patron section? Is he with Cliff's team?" Tessa squinted, then smiled. "He's not on the performer list. I thought he was with you." Marlowe's eyes narrowed. "He most certainly is not." She signaled to a staff member. "There's a seating mistake. Row E, seat 4. Fix it," the staff member said carefully. "Actually, ma'am, Mr. Lenine from backstage placed him there. He had a note." Marlowe raised her eyebrows. "A note? Since when is a note the way we decide who gets in?" Before the worker could answer, Marlowe stood up. When she moved, the room noticed. People paused, watching her glide across the floor. She walked up to Keanu and smiled, a smooth, fake smile. "I'm afraid there's been a little confusion," she said sweetly. "These seats are for verified guests." Keanu looked at her. His eyes were kind and calm. "A staff member told me I could sit here," he said. "I'm not trying to cause any trouble." "I'm sure," Marlowe said. "But we must keep things proper. Looks matter." Keanu looked at the stage, then back at her. "I'm happy to move." Marlowe turned before he could finish standing. Whispers started. Some people chuckled. "I thought he was a sound guy," one person said. "Dressed like a roadie," said another. Keanu walked quietly with the usher to the very back. Marlowe sat down, feeling like everything was right again. The lights dimmed. Soft music began to play. Waiters carried tiny foods that looked like art. But something else was spreading in the room. Laughter. Not happy laughter. Mean laughter. The kind rich people do when they're making fun of someone. At table 9, Sir Edmund Jennings whispered to his friend, "Did you see that man? Though it was open seating. Poor fellow." Celeste Ramsey chuckled into her drink. "I thought he was a backstage helper. Or maybe a sad little artist." At table 6, Tessa Vane giggled. "I was going to offer him a tie. He looked like he came from a funeral." More laughter. Soft but cruel. At the back of the hall, Keanu sat quietly. No table. No nameplate. Just a chair and a view. But he didn't mind. He wasn't here to be seen. He was here for something more important. He watched the musicians with quiet interest. His fingers were resting gently in his lap. He cared about the music. He cared about the reason for the event. The rest didn't matter to him. He didn't need to hear every word to understand what people were saying. Laughter has meaning. And tonight, the laughter was all going one way. From her seat near the middle, Celeste Marlowe raised her glass. Her smile was sharp as she looked around at the crowd. "Do we still not know who he is?" someone next to her asked, pretending to be curious. Marlowe's voice was sweet but mean. "No name. No badge. No hello. No importance." People at her table agreed. The laughter grew louder, though it was hidden behind the music. Eyes looked again toward the back of the room. Keanu didn't move. A young waiter walked up to him, a little nervous, holding a tray of tiny snacks. "Sir, would you like one?" Keanu looked up and smiled kindly. "Thank you. That's very nice of you." The waiter looked surprised, like he didn't expect such kindness. For a short moment, he looked calm too. Across the room, Celeste Marlowe saw this. She narrowed her eyes. Something about Keanu's calmness bothered her. He didn't get upset. He didn't talk back. He just sat there, peaceful and still. And that made her angry. Because teasing only works when the other person gets upset. And Keanu didn't. Not yet. Before we go on, where are you watching from? Your city, your country, or just your comfy chair at home? Type, "still here," or your location in the comments. We read everything. The lights got brighter as the first speakers finished, and gentle clapping filled the room. The Royal Music Gala was going just as planned. That made Celeste Marlowe happy. She loved when everything stayed in perfect order. Order, to her, meant power. At her table, which was close to the stage, Marlowe looked at her friend Tessa Vane. It was time to show off the big donors during the music. Every camera, every name, every smile had been planned. Everything was going just right, until the wrong face appeared on the screen. It was only for a second. A live video showing the audience moved across the crowd. Then it stopped at a man sitting alone in the far corner. Black shirt. No tie. No name tag. Keanu Reeves. As soon as his face appeared on the huge screen behind the stage, the whole room got quiet. People looked confused. Marlowe stopped breathing for a second. Her eyes flashed with anger. "Tessa," she whispered, still smiling, but with a voice like a knife. "Cut the feed." Tessa looked up from her tablet, confused. Then she saw it. The wrong man, sitting in the wrong place, now shone 10 feet tall behind the performers at the Royal Albert Hall. People were starting to whisper. A second later, the screen turned black. The lights flickered. The orchestra stopped tuning. Marlowe stood halfway up, just enough to get the attention of the head of security. She didn't yell. She didn't need to. She just pointed at Keanu. 2 guards in uniforms started walking calmly through the rows of seats. Keanu looked up. The silence in the room lasted as they came closer. "Sir," one of them said politely, "we've been asked to move you. Please come with us." Keanu nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't make a scene. He stood up and fixed his shirt sleeves. As he walked past the rows of shiny dresses and tuxedos, some people leaned over and whispered. One person chuckled nervously. "Tessa," Marlowe said again, now in a low and scary voice, "fix this." Tessa looked nervous. "We're live. Do you want me to say something?" Marlowe's eyes narrowed. "Yes. Say it was a seating mix-up. A mistake. Anything but silence." Tessa stood and walked up to the microphone at the front of the stage. The music was still stopped behind her. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said with a stiff smile, "we're sorry for that short break. There was a small seating mix-up that is now fixed. Thank you for understanding. Now, please enjoy the show." The crowd clapped politely, but the feeling in the room was still strange. Keanu was now gone from view, walking down a hallway at the side. Some guests were still whispering. Marlowe sat down slowly. Her hands were resting on the table, not moving. Her smile came back, but deep inside, she felt something tighten. She wanted this to be over. But she had a feeling. He wasn't gone. And he hadn't said a single word. The hallway behind the main room smelled a little like old wood and theater seats. It was meant for workers and performers, not guests. It was dark, quiet, and plain. That's where they left him. Keanu stood by a wall near the staff break room. His hands were in his pockets. He watched a small screen that showed the live event. The gala had started again. The music was back. People were clapping and smiling like he had never been there. The two guards who brought him here gave a small, awkward nod, then walked away. They weren't mean. They were just doing their job. Keanu didn't blame them. A stage worker walked by, then stopped and looked again. "Wait, are you?" the worker said, surprised. Keanu smiled softly but didn't say yes or no. The worker blinked. "Right. Sorry." Then he rushed off like he was scared he'd made a mistake just by noticing the wrong person. Keanu turned back to the screen. From here, he could see Celeste Marlowe again. She sat in the center, looking proud, like a queen from an old movie. She was laughing now with Tessa and some men in fancy suits. From this angle, the cameras couldn't see how mean her smile really was. She had won, for now. The guest she didn't want had been taken away. But Keanu hadn't come to be noticed. He didn't come for fame or thanks. He came for the music. A young woman with a headset and clipboard hurried by, then came back when she saw him. Sir? You're not supposed to be here," she said, looking around nervously. Keanu nodded calmly. "They told me to wait here." She looked confused. "Well, people don't usually wait back here unless they're workers or performers." "I'm neither," Keanu said gently. "But I'm not here to cause trouble." She stared at him, surprised by how peaceful he seemed. He didn't look like he belonged, but he also didn't look lost. After a short pause, she sighed and handed him a bottle of water from her tray. "Well, if anyone asks, you're with me. For now." Keanu gave her a small, warm smile. "Thank you." She disappeared into the busy halls again. Keanu sat down on a low bench under an old poster from a symphony long ago. He kept watching the screen quietly. On stage, people were being introduced. Their names were said. Everyone clapped. Fancy drinks were poured. Everyone looked happy. But they didn't know the truth. They didn't know that the quiet man backstage, the man who had been laughed at, taken away, and hidden, was the one who had paid for the instruments they were using, the chairs they were sitting on, the hope they were clapping for. But Keanu didn't need them to know. Not yet. He could wait. Because when the right voice spoke, everything would change. When someone said the right name, he didn't need to say anything at all. The violin music stopped, and everyone clapped loudly. Viva Thorne didn't move. She sat very still at the big table in the middle. Her light gray dress spread out around her like soft waves. Her glass of wine was still full. Her smile stayed the same, but something in her eyes had changed. He was still here. Not on the stage. Not sitting at the guest tables. But somewhere, like a quiet shadow that wouldn't go away. Viva leaned over to Tessa Vane, who was looking at her notes. "You told me he was taken out," Viva said. "He was," Tessa whispered, trying to sound sure. "I saw the guards take him backstage." Viva squinted. "Then why do I keep hearing people talk about him? Some guests are asking, who was the man in black? Why was he taken away?" Tessa looked around nervously. "People are talking about it online. The cameras caught it. There are videos already." Viva's mouth tightened. "He's not on any list. He's not a helper, not a singer, not a sponsor. He has no name tag, no permission, nothing. So why, Tessa? Is he still here at my party?" People clapped politely again. Viva didn't even look. She stood up. Some guests nearby looked around, unsure if they should stand too. Viva quietly and quickly walked out of the main room through a side door. She moved like she knew every step of this building, like she had walked it many times. Her high heels made soft clicks on the shiny floor. Her dress followed behind her like smoke. Backstage, a young helper saw her and froze. Have you seen a man in a black shirt, about 40 years old, no badge, staying where he shouldn't be? Viva asked. The helper stuttered. He's down near the stage left lounge. I thought he was allowed. Viva didn't say anything. She turned the corner, and there he was. He was sitting on a bench, legs crossed, calmly watching a screen. He looked peaceful, like he belonged there. Keanu looked up when she came close. Celeste Thorne, he said softly. She stiffened when he said her name. He didn't say it in a mean way or like he was scared. He just said it evenly. This area is not for guests, she said sharply. I was told to wait here, he said. By who? A young woman with a headset. I didn't catch her name. Viva crossed her arms. You've seen enough, Mr. Reeves. You've made enough people stop and look. This is a private event. I won't let mystery and confusion ruin it. I didn't make any trouble, Keanu said gently. I just came to listen. Viva stepped closer, standing tall while he stayed sitting. You might think being quiet is powerful, she said. But here, in rooms like this, being quiet means no one cares. No one says your name because no one knows it. Keanu didn't react. That made her even more upset. Leave, she whispered, her voice shaking. Leave now or I'll make sure you are taken out for good. He stood up slowly. I will, he said, if that's what you truly want. He walked past her, calm, slow, not upset at all. And Celeste Marlowe, the queen of perfect events, watched him go with her hands clenched. She had won every battle tonight. So why did it feel like she was starting to lose something bigger? Inside the Grand Royal Albert Hall, soft silence filled the air as the last notes of the music faded. The lights dimmed, casting a gentle golden glow over the people sitting down. Then a bright spotlight turned on, pointing at the velvet-covered stage. Sir Graham Hollis stepped into the light. Everyone clapped loudly and quickly. They didn't need anyone to say his name. Cliff Richard was more than just a singer. He was tradition, charm, and kindness, all in one. Tonight, he wasn't just singing. He was the heart of the whole night. He smiled kindly, put a hand to his chest, and waited. When the applause stopped, his warm, strong voice filled the room. Thank you, truly. It's an honor to be here with all of you. Friends, artists, helpers, and people who believe in what music can do when it touches hearts that need it most. The crowd clapped again, softer this time. Glasses clinked. Celeste Marlowe Thorne sat tall again, her face calm like nothing had happened. Cliff went on, we've raised over £6 million tonight. That money will help give music therapy to children who are scared, to old people with memory loss, and to soldiers who have been hurt deeply. He paused. But before I sing tonight, I want to tell you something that wasn't in the plan. The room got very quiet again. Cliff's voice became softer. Earlier tonight, someone was asked to leave this room. The words dropped into the quiet room like a stone into still water. People stopped talking. Some shifted in their seats. From her chair, Marlowe held her breath. Some of you may have seen him, Cliff said. A man in a black shirt. Quiet. Kind. Unknown. Cliff looked toward the left side of the stage, where the curtain moved slightly. He didn't wear a badge. He didn't come on stage. He didn't want attention. But I want you to know something. The only reason this gala wasn't cancelled 3 months ago is because of that man. People in the audience began to murmur softly, surprised. Cliff's voice grew deeper, more serious now. When we lost our money, when support stopped coming, he didn't ask for photos. He didn't want a front row seat. He just asked, how much do you need? Cliff paused. And then he gave. Quietly. Secretly. Behind Cliff, the big screen turned on. It showed a live video from backstage. Keanu Reeves was still there. Still in his black shirt. Still standing quietly, watching. And the whole hall let out a long breath, all at once. Cliff smiled softly. You took him away, but he's the reason we're all here. No one moved. No one spoke. Then the spotlight moved a little to the side of the stage. It lit up a man that everyone had made fun of just an hour ago. But now, the room didn't clap. Something deeper was in the air. Something like feeling sorry, and feeling amazed. Keanu Reeves stood still in the light. He was just off stage, with half of him in the shadow, half in the light. Like he had one foot here, and one somewhere far away. His hands were gently folded in front of him. His face showed no big feeling, not proud, not sad. Just calm. For a few quiet seconds, no one in the big room even remembered how to breathe. Then, slowly, a whisper went through the air. It moved like wind in tall grass. Keanu Reeves. Wait, is that Keanu Reeves? Even the people who had laughed at him earlier were now leaning forward, their eyes wide, holding their drinks but forgetting to sip. At the center table, Celeste Marlowe's jaw got tight. She didn't say anything. She couldn't. Hearing that name felt like getting slapped. On stage, Cliff Richard spoke again. His voice made everyone listen. Yes, that man standing backstage. He didn't want an introduction. He didn't want a special part. He didn't even want a seat. He turned toward Keanu with a kind look that melted all the coldness in the room. But he gave more than anyone. Not just money, though he gave a lot. He gave me hope. He believed in us. When we were ready to give up, when our music clinics were closing in 3 countries, he called me out of nowhere. And he said, "Don't stop the music." Keanu stayed still. But the crowd didn't. Clapping started, soft and slow at first. People weren't sure. Then it got louder. It grew like a wave, moving from the far corners of the room to the center tables. People stood up, not all at once, but one by one, as they felt how important this moment was. A woman near the front wiped her eyes. A man in a tuxedo clapped so hard his fancy cufflink flew off. At the center table, Celeste Marlowe still didn't move. The clapping surrounded her. But it didn't seem to touch her. People who used to try and sit near her were now standing. But they weren't looking at her anymore. They were looking at someone else. Keanu didn't walk forward. He didn't bow. He didn't wave. He just gave Cliff a small nod and looked down. The way someone does when they're being thanked for something they didn't want praise for. Tessa Vane, still standing on the side, looked at the floor, her cheeks red. The young waiter who had given Keanu water earlier looked like he wanted to cheer. Cliff raised his hand. The applause slowly became quiet. Sometimes, Cliff said, the most powerful person in a room is the one who says nothing at all. He turned back to the microphone. And now, if it's okay with you, I'd like to sing this next song for the man who reminded us what true kindness looks like. People were still standing as the first piano note played. And Keanu Reeves, the man who had been pushed to the side, now stood in the middle of everyone's hearts, even though he stayed in the shadows. The last note of the song floated in the air like smoke. Soft, quiet, and unforgettable. When the song ended, people didn't clap loudly. They clapped slowly, gently, like a prayer instead of a party. Keanu had quietly walked back into the wings. But everyone still felt like he was there. Celeste Marlowe stayed in her chair, sitting straight with her pretty earrings sparkling in the light. But no one looked at her anymore. Not Tessa. Not the rich guests sitting next to her. Not even the workers she used to order around. To her left, Lord Silas had already turned to talk with a young music helper from Nairobi. He was smiling, asking her questions about her clinic. To her right, Sir Edmund was writing something on a napkin. Someone whispered he was planning a new money gift in Keanu's name. No one was whispering to Marlowe. No one asked her anything. Her voice, which used to be so powerful, now felt empty. She lifted her glass to make a toast, but no one joined in. No one even noticed. She looked perfect. Fancy dress, nice hair, sparkly jewelry. But she was totally alone. Across the room, Cliff Richard came down from the stage. Keanu appeared beside him again for a short moment. No one rushed to him. No one crowded him. He was just welcomed, with quiet, kind respect. The silence around him felt special, almost like something holy. They said a few quiet words. Someone took a picture right then. Keanu smiling a little, Cliff gently putting a hand on his shoulder. That photo will be on the front page of the newspaper tomorrow. Marlowe already knew it. A camera flash from far away snapped her out of her thinking. It wasn't aimed at her. It was aimed at Keanu. And in that tiny flash of light, Marlowe suddenly understood something. She hadn't been beaten. She had been left behind. Because power isn't something you hold tight. It's something you share. And Keanu had shared everything. Quietly, kindly. He didn't ask for thanks. But now he was the one everyone looked up to. Marlowe stood up slowly. She nodded to no one. And she walked out of the room. Her high heels clicked on the marble floor like little tapping sounds. The end of a story no one was reading anymore. No one stopped her. No one followed her. And that silence? It was the loudest part of all. In a world that loves big noise, big names, and showing off, sometimes the strongest thing you can do is show up not to be seen, but to help. Keanu never defended himself. He didn't yell. He didn't wear the fanciest suit. But he reminded a room full of important people what real respect and kindness look like. If you liked this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think. And don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling adventures, mysteries, and unforgettable moments. Your support keeps these stories alive and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you in the next video.